Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Autumn Ambrose and today I am building an old miner's cottage in the world of Glimmerbrook. The reason why I wanted to build an old miner's cottage was because when I got the high school years pack from a previous build where I made an Art Deco home with a mid-century modern twist to it, I had a look at the live edit debug section because I love to play around with the live edit debug. I tend not to touch the hidden objects section of debug because a lot of the items are quite small and there's just so many of them, especially when you have all the packs and you see them all lined up in the rows. It's just like, okay, that's just too much. That's very overwhelming to look at. Even with the Twisted Mexi mod where you can expand the catalog menu, it's still a little bit too much to look at. Whereas the live edit debug section, a lot of the items are quite big, and so I feel like personally for me it's easier to look at and see what's what and see what's in there. And so for this build I knew I wanted to use those mining objects that you would see in the live edit debug of high school years, because I believe Cottage was once a mining town. I think that's the storyline for that town. And so yeah, I wanted to use some of those objects for my next build, as I wasn't really too sure what to build next, but once I saw those items, I'm like, okay, let's go. But I did know for one thing, the next build I wanted to build something a lot smaller than the Art Deco build, which was a very large build. And I knew that I wanted to build something small. And so I was like, ooh, a cottage will be very ideal because cottages tend to be on the smaller side. It's just, I go for like an old rustic looking cottage, or do I go for something a little bit more fancy? I decided to go for a bit more fancy because just a couple builds ago I did a eerie swamp which was very rustic and very like old and run down, and it's been a while since I last built a very fancy looking build that had a very whimsical vibe to it, which is something I wanted to do for this build. And so I thought, okay, let's go to Pinterest, see if I can find any whimsical fancy looking cottages, and I found some. A lot of these cottages were set in a woodsy foresty area, and I thought, ooh, Glimmerbrook would be a perfect place to build this old miner's cottage. And so this build that I'm building on is actually the lot that I'm building on is actually a pub or bar lot. So when you load into Glimmerbrook, you will tend to see a bar in the world. I have got rid of that bar and decided to build this old miner's cottage instead. And so if I were to upload this build to the gallery, you would find that you would see the side view of this cottage or the build. That's because I built this the wrong way round. I was aware of this when I was building this cottage. I was aware of it. And the reason why I didn't change the rotation of this build was because, one, I needed a lot in Glimmerbrook that was very long, so very landscape, because I knew I needed a lot of room to fit not only the mine itself, but also the cottage and all the decorations that go along with the mine. So that was number one. Number two, as I got building, trying to figure out what or how I wanted this cottage to look like, I found that I love the backdrop setting of the trees in the background, and where I place the mine there are some rocks in the world, and it kind of looks like the rocks in the world and the rocks that I place are like kind of connected to each other, and it kind of looks like the where I place the mine, it would make sense with the rocks in the background. Looks, like I said, it looks like they're kind of like connected to one another. So that was number two. Number three, I personally feel like this lot, it could go either way because of the like wrap around sidewalk or pavement area, because it was once a bar lot. It kind of looks like it could go either way, and if we could have the ability to choose which angle gallery builds photos are taken, that would be great, because I know you can, when you, before, I haven't made a sim in ages, but you can choose like what sort of pose they're in before you upload them to the gallery. We need something similar to that for building. We can just sort of like click on the camera and it will go through all these different angles to show off the build, because there are some lots in the game where I personally feel like they could go either way. There's no like right or wrong way they could go, especially if like they got like a wraparound pavement or sidewalk. So it'd be great if we could have that ability. It would also be great if they just could control, undo, delete whatever they did to the gallery, and go back to normal. So that would be great. So yeah, I if I do upload this to the gallery, you have a lovely side view of this build. And one thing that I wanted to include for this build was like a rounded pop out, because lots of the Pinterest pictures that I was looking at had these rounded pop outs. Some of them were double stacked, some of them were single stacked, and I was like, ooh, that is something I would like to include for my build, as I already decided I wanted to go for like a fancy looking cottage. And so I was like, okay, I want both rounded single and double stacked pop outs for my cottage, but I would also like you to see both of them from the front of the build. So for my entryway, I knew I had to keep it simple, kind of flat looking for the entranceway, and so I decided to go for a diagonal section where the door is sitting. And whenever I build a diagonal wall, I always get confused afterwards, because I'm like, am I drawing a diagonal wall or am I drawing a straight wall? I can't really tell. So I always tend to get a bit confused and very slow when I build diagonal walls. But I got there eventually. And as I was building this, I wanted to see if the high school years pack wallpaper and items that came with that pack could be used away from the Art Deco style, and I could use it in other builds of mine. And so I knew I wanted to incorporate a high school years wallpaper, and I found this red brick wallpaper, and once I put that down, I was like, ooh, I think this build will look quite nice with the get together Tudor cladding wallpaper. And I just kind of stumbled into this very warmed, almost autumn colour looking colour scheme for this build. I also noticed the lighting for this lot in the evening looks really, really pretty and really suits the autumn warm tones that I accidentally fell into for the exterior of this build. But I'm really happy with the way this looks, and it just so happens that I'm building this build that has a very autumnal feeling to it, when I've been seeing lots of like autumn stuff pop up, even though in June, July, we're in July, so like in the middle of summer, I'm really starting to see like autumn stuff, which I'm happy to see. I love autumn. I would quite happy say bye bye August and hop right into September, October time. I love it. And I was recently, just having a browse on the home section of TK Maxx, Home Sense, with my mum, and as soon as we walked up those stairs and round the corner, what was the first thing that we saw? We saw a witch's statue with her bubbling cauldron, and right behind her were some more Halloween decorations, and I was just like, yeah. There's also this arts and crafts store called Hobbycraft in the UK. I've seen them advertising these like pumpkin plushies. So yeah, I've been seeing lots of like autumn stuff, even though we're still in summer or the middle of summer, and I'm starting to see autumn stuff pop up, which is great, and I love it. And just before I quickly talk about the interior of this build, I believe that Disney is also releasing another version of the Haunted Mansion, I think. And I think it's been released in August. And I don't know if it's like a spin-off or like a version 2 following on from the first one, but I'm quite happy to watch it again, especially in August. Just fast forwarding all those spooky autumn vibes right into the middle of the summer. I'm quite happy to take it. But now we are inside. For the interior of this build, I knew I wanted to have a very fancy English interior. So I used a lot of cottage living, as cottage living was kind of like based on like a English countryside. So I do use a lot of cottage living. I was also feeling like this build or this interior could have benefited from um, very oldie woldy jungle natured inspired wallpaper, kind of on the lines of what's his face, William Morris. Some of his designs would have looked quite nice in here, and I do download some William Morris pictures from the gallery. I've used them before in one of my builds previously, and the only things that I could find in The Sims 4 that came close to that sort of like oldie woldy English uh, jungle nature inspired looking wallpaper was from the cottage living pack, and so I used it downstairs, pretty much everywhere downstairs, as this is an open planned downstairs living area, as a lot of my builds are. But for the upstairs, when I came upstairs, I didn't want to continue the cottage living wallpaper and stick it upstairs into the bedrooms. I wanted to do something a little bit different, so I used the William Morris prints that I found on the gallery, and I sized them up and kind of made them look like a bit like a tapestry or like a feature wall, because I was just really trying to get across that fancy cottage English vibes. Another vibe that I really wanted to get across, or like another style that I wanted to get across, was industrial twang to it, because this cottage was for the mine, and I feel like the previous owner of this cottage was the owner of both the mine and the cottage, and I would love to build his house next. I'm thinking his house could be a Jacobean house. So a Jacobean house was a house that was being built in the Jacobean era that went from 1603 to about 1625, which occurred in the Stuart era, I think. And so yeah, I in my head I imagined that the previous owners was the owner of the cottage and the mine, and then once the mine got discontinued, the owner of the mine and the cottage, he moved out into something much bigger and better, and the one of the workers that used to work in the mine now lives in this cottage. But there was one thing that I was struggling to incorporate, which was I wanted this build to have like an industrial twang to it, and so I decided to go for like very warm bronzy copper colours for the interior, as I felt like, one, it suited the warm tones of the exterior of the build, but also it gave off that industrial twang that I was looking for. But yeah, I found it quite difficult trying to introduce the industrialness to this build, because I wanted the interior to be predominantly very British and very fancy, with just a hint of industrial. So yeah, I spent a very long time choosing a bin. You just think it's just a bin, it's just a trash can. It'll be very simple, but like I said, I always tend to, at the moment, I plan my builds. So I plan the exterior of my builds, I plan the interior of my builds, and the one thing I didn't plan for was a bin, and that's what tripped me over. I spent a very long time choosing a bin. I cut it out, but yeah, a bin tripped me over with the style of this build. Like, do I go for barrel bin? Do I go for a bit more modern bin? What bin should I use? I was overthinking the bin option. Oh yeah, so we have like looks like the rabbit from Alice in Wonderland, and I thought it'd be like a nice idea if I put a clock next to that picture because he's like always worried that he's gonna be late or something. So I put a little clock there. I also put down a stool by the counter because I realised that the laundry shelf was quite high up, and I felt like your Sims could step onto the stool and reach up and get what they need. This is like a little reading cozy nook. At the moment, I really like the look of books. At the moment, I feel like they're just like very aesthetically pleasing, very pretty looking. I don't know if that has anything to do with the book nook kit. I don't know. I don't have the book nook kit at the moment. It is something I would like to get for myself. But yeah, this is like a really cozy reading nook. I put down blankets because blankets equals coziness, and just lots of random books and clutter. I put like a wooden duck statue down. There was this like lumberjack wooden figurine that I found. I don't put it down now because I haven't found it yet. But when I was just going through, making sure everything looks okay, making sure none of the plants that I put outside were coming through the wall, a lot of them were, so I had to push them out the wall. So yeah, I was just going through seeing that I agreed with what I did and I like what I did. And so I just put in a few more items here and there. So there's those bookcases downstairs. They had like open areas where I could put some clutter into them. And as I was taking the screenshot, I was like, ooh, it will look better for the screenshots if I would fill in those holes with clutter. And so yeah, I just went round just making sure I was happy with the clutter level. So this is the like little study nook there. Again, lots of clutter. So this is bedroom number 1. It's only 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. I don't show you the bathroom, but the bathroom is basically in the same style as the laundry. We just swap out the laundry for a bathtub. There is room for a shower in the bathroom, but I'm struggling with the placement of the wash basket because it was just kind of sticking out. So I was like, okay, let's just get rid of the shower and put the wash basket in that area. But you could quite happily remove the wash basket and pull it outside in the hallway and place a shower in that area because there is plenty of space where it kind of looks like there should be a shower. But that's the reason. So this, like I said, is bedroom number 1. This is bedroom number 2. I love this bedroom. I just like the colours. Again, it's very fancy looking. When I was decorating this bedroom, I was keeping in mind that this is basically the front of the house, so you can see this at the front. And so I want it to be very aesthetically pleasing through the windows. So you're like, oh, what's that? I would like to know. It looks very pretty now. I want to see. So I was very aware of that. But this is where I'm going to leave you. So thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next one. So thank you.